Welcome to the Starter Girls podcast, the show dedicated to the Starter Girl. She's an achiever, she's a creator, she's a magic maker, she's a dreamer, and she is doing all the things. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and welcome to this episode. All right, here we are, another episode of the Starter Girls show, and I'm super excited about my guest today, Sara Deacon. She is the adulting coach, and she works with young adults, empowering them to play in their passion and to own their future. And I love this, like a boss. I absolutely love this. So I'm so excited to get her on the show today because I know many of you are probably parents like I am and are either in that place where you've got kids that are now getting close to graduating, or you could be like me where mine are like in and out of the house, and so we kind of passed that. But I know many of you are parents and have kiddos that are going to be up and nearing, and I know she's going to bring some great information today, so super thrilled to get her on the show. So welcome, Sara. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Jennifer. It's great to be here. I'm glad we made it work.
Absolutely. I know it's always a challenge. I feel like with technology and getting all the things and the people and the places and coordinated, right? But we made it.
Yes, we did.
Super fun. So I kind of want to open this up really quick so our audience can get a little feel for who you are and what you do, because, I tell everybody Starter Girls show, the thing about this is it's, the show for the female entrepreneur. And as we know, a lot of us entrepreneurs have kiddos, and we're juggling, We're wearing all the hats. We're managing our businesses, we're managing our households, managing our kids. I say managing because I feel like we have to line everything up all the time. We're like putting people in the right places. Right. And so I think, what you do is awesome. And I think it's kind of a unique thing and a much needed thing. So share with our audience a little bit about what it is you're doing and where you're coming from on this.
Yeah, that's super true. I have kids of my own and am doing my business. So same as many of your listeners probably are too. My oldest is 15. So we are entering the teenage, sprint to graduation, whatever you want to call it. Right. And I get to work with like juniors and seniors in high school generally. Sometimes the freshmen, sophomore college students who are trying to figure out what's next for their lives. They're not necessarily seeking out advice from parents at this point, or even teachers or older mentors, people with more experience. They're maybe talking more to their peers who are just as confused as they are. So it's like the blind leading the blind. I know that was my experience in high school and college. Was I had no interest in going to teachers or parents to figure out my next steps. I took in what they told me and I tried to check the boxes, and it didn't work out the way I thought it would. We'll say it that way. I had a long winding road to kind of figure out where I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, what I wanted for my own life. And that's what I get to help young people do today, because they are a lot more self-aware than we sometimes give them credit for.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And I think sometimes the best way that we teach people, right, is in our own journeys. It's when we've gone through our own experiences that we can sort of come out on the other side and we can teach people. I always say we have kind of the foot in the door, because now we can take what we've learned or what we've navigated and how we managed to get through that, and then help other people learn from those lessons. So, good for you for being able to do that. And I think, I have another friend that is and I think I shared this with you, that she's a parent coach. So she does the other side of the parenting, which I think is so interesting. And so, having that person that can navigate either that side of it or where you're coming from, the high school, the teen years, which can be a very difficult, time for everyone involved. I think that that's powerful to have those two, people in those corners, right?
Yes. I get a lot of laughs when I say, I'm Sara Deacon. I work with teenagers on purpose. A lot of people just want to avoid that phase of life and not look back, because some of our own teenage years might have been very traumatic, or we might be triggered by what the teenagers are doing right now and things like that. So yes, I get to work with teenagers on purpose, and I never wanted to, but I love it. And I think that both roles, the parent coach and a teen coach, is super, super important, because especially when they are on the same page. A lot of coaches do speak the same language, where you can start to bridge those gaps in communication between parents and their teen and young adult children.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and to your point, you're right. Not many teenagers really want to go to their parents or their teachers, to talk about things they're navigating. They're talking to their peers most of the time, right? And so I think it's
Yeah,
great when you have that adult person who can come in, and you have such a great personality just from meeting you. With the couple times that I met you, I feel like you have
right.
such a warm, kind of fun, kind of, I feel like a non-threatening kind of energy about you, which I think is so important.
Yes. Yeah, that's really important, especially when connecting with young people, because they are very resistant to maybe somebody telling them what to do. And that's not my job. I'm not another adult that's telling them what to do or what they should do or what they should think about or how they should step up their game. I get to come in and get curious about who they are and what their thought life is like, what their emotional life is like. And they get to, sort of explore that in that safe container where I just get to sort of listen and hear, listen for that spark, that little light that might be worth chasing after a little bit to see where it leads. And yeah, it is. I like to say it takes a village just as much when your kids are teenagers and young adults as it did when they were babies and toddlers, because being able to outsource some of that, like you said, managing it all
Right.
to somebody who shares your values and who wants the best for your kid, somebody who will pour into them just like you will, and they can do it in a way that the teen can actually hear and receive, because it's not coming from this natural urge towards separation and pushback that they have to have. It's a developmental phase they need to go through, is separating from mom and dad and finding their own identity and discovering for themselves who they are. And eventually, you may know with your adult children, they come back and they realize, oh, hey, I was really not that nice to you when I was a teenager or whatever. They do eventually kind of wake up to what was going on and how they maybe should have taken the advice that they didn't take when they were that age. But if you can get a lot of people on the team who share the same values and who can pour into and care for the young people, they can really avoid some of the pitfalls that we fear, and the anxiety and the overwhelm and the even the depression or the suicidal tendencies that are, nobody wants to talk about or look at, but they're out there and it happens
Yeah. This is
younger
good,
and
Sarah.
younger.
Yeah, this is really good, Sarah. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I think the thing that I'm hearing from, there's so much to take away from this, but the big thing is separating the difference between, when you were talking about in the beginning, the listening and asking questions and getting interested. It's really the coaching aspect of what you're
Hmm.
doing. It moves
Yes.
away from consultant, where you're saying, let me tell you what you should be doing. And it
Right.
comes back to, now I'm your coach and I'm your mentor and I'm on your side and I'm walking with you in this to help you get past this and move to that, through the threshold of this. And so I really like that, because I think
Yeah.
it sets the difference. And so much of, I feel like these are all relationships, right? Like we're building relationships. And this is I think, part of us living healthy and whole even as entrepreneurs, right? Because we want our relationships to be healthy with with the people that we work with and our family and our friends and of course our kiddos, right? And we know that that's a
100%.
tough time. And so somebody like you being able to be
Yes.
on their side and come in and say, hey, I'm your friend, I'm your mentor, I'm going to walk with you and you get to be you and I'm going to help you do that. I think that's
Right. They're
awesome.
going through things that I've never gone through. So
Yeah.
I can still help because I can get them clarifying their thoughts, their feelings, their direction, what they might want to explore or play with, or questioning some of the stories that maybe they're telling that aren't necessarily true. The big one, we all know it when we're teenagers. It's the end of the world if I don't X, Y, or Z, right? It's
Right.
the end of the world, right? And
Right.
actually getting into that and saying, okay, why would it be the end of the world? And like really like learning from them. So that's something I find really exciting because they can get there. They can articulate and think through things really, really well. And I just love learning from them because they come up with things that I never would have thought of. But by being there with them and exploring that and those different thoughts, those feelings, the struggles that they have, it not only opens up relief or confidence for them, it also informs my own parenting, how I talk to my kids and how I can see something that they might be going through that they might not even be aware of for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting. I was talking to someone the other day, just kind of about this age, because I really feel like, and I know you're kind of working with these kids getting to graduation, but I think different times, for different children are difficult. I think it's different for every child, right? And I always say that, I have three
It's true.
children and my youngest is 18. My two girls have at complete different times have had their own, difficulties. One was when she was between the ages of 17 and 18. The other one was more like, 18 to 20 was, so they're all very, very
Mm-hmm.
different. But
Mm-hmm.
was telling someone just the other day, I said, you think when they're little and you go through like the terrible twos and all the young stuff, you think, man, this is really, really hard. And then you get to
Mm-hmm.
this young adult stage, like this margin of 18 to like 20, I don't know,
20,
is it maybe
22, yep.
24, 20, somewhere in there.
Yep.
And that is like a whole new breed of child. Like that is just a whole new thing, right? Because they're
Yeah.
stuck in that place of they want to be adults because technically and legally they are, right? But they're
Yes.
not really quite mature enough to be on their own and be adults. And you want to give them the freedom of space to be an adult, but yet you also want to protect them. And you also
Mm-hmm.
recognize that they're not really 100% ready to navigate all of adulthood. So there's like that balance. I don't even know if I want to use balance. Maybe we just find harmony in this, right? You find the harmony. That's what I
Right.
would say. Find the harmony in this because it is such a delicate stage. You know what I mean? A stage
Yeah.
and age.
And
It's just a
it is one of those developmental times that as parents, we really do need to set our own emotions and triggers aside. Like we need to do our own work in this season.
Mhm.
And when I work with especially kids under 18, I am in communication with the parent, like your friend, that, there's an element of coaching of the parents generally with a lot of the people I work with, just because sometimes most of the time the parent is paying for a good chunk of the coaching or
Right.
things like that. So there is this strong communication, and I'm always 100% open as much as possible without breaking confidentiality with my client. I am open with the parent to help them, give them tools and resources and different ways to take steps and do their own work so that that relationship can be preserved through these years that are so tumultuous. It's not as easy to see the child in our children when they're 18, 19, 20 years old and they're taller than us and they're bigger than us and they and they look for all intents and purposes like an adult.
Right.
And it's hard to see that, that child that's still in there and still needs us to show up unconditionally loving them, like the 2-year-old throwing the tantrum, right? The terrible
Mhm.
twos. It's easy. They're small. Their bodies are small. We understand that their brains are not fully developed. But even in that early adulthood, the prefrontal cortex is not fully wired up until age 24, 25, 26, around that time. So they still do need support and help regulating various experiences, integrating their emotions and experiences during those times. And we do need to show up as parents unconditionally and do our best. Not that we're ever going to be perfect of it, because they can, let's be honest, they can say some hurtful things. They can argue and reason and make their case, and it can be really hard and frustrating and triggering for us as parents to go through that. Keep in mind that they do still need you, and they are still looking for your approval, and they do still want your help and support, and ultimately just keep showing up in love even as they're pushing you away as hard as they possibly can.
Well, I was smiling at you, Sarah, because the word that kept wanting to come out of my mouth was manipulative.
Mm,
That
right.
was like, I'm like, they are clever. These
Hmm.
kids are so clever. I laugh. It's like,
Yeah, and
yes.
testing.
And you're so right. The mouth, the opinion, the opinions
Hmm.
and the mouthiness. And you sometimes have to just, pull yourself back and go, okay, just take a step back, try to look outside in, take a moment,
Right.
pause. And because yes, they can test you, and you can have those moments where you go, is that really my child? Is that my child in there?
Right. Right.
So
It is. And they're trying on all different ways of being at this
yeah.
point. They're figuring out who they really are and who they want to be. And who they are at 15 is not going to be who they're at 17 or who they
Right.
are at 19 or who they are at 23. And it's okay. And the last thing they want to hear is, oh, this is just a phase. So
Right.
don't tell
Right.
them that.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though it might be,
Right.
it's not, it's very, very real.
Yeah.
And they really connect and get attached to the opinions, the beliefs, the stories that they are telling themselves at this age.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we honor and respect that, because they need that, and they need to know that there is a safe place to explore and to try these things out, and to be okay when it works and be okay when it doesn't work.
Yeah. No, this is good, Sarah. Well, and I know one of the things we talked about off camera was, these next steps, moving these kids, now that they're coming up graduate, what does this look like? And I know that's a lot of
Mm,
the work you've been doing right now is
yeah.
working with these kids because graduation is coming up. So maybe, share with us if you want to a little bit about that, like maybe some advice you have, or some, you've already given us a lot of really good advice. There's been a lot of really good takeaways in this, but maybe as
Right.
these kids are starting, I mean, I completely lost track that we're in April and graduation is like around the
I
corner. I
know.
mean, it
It's
just,
like you
hello, it
come
just
back
blew
from
by.
spring break and it is downhill. Like it
Yeah.
is, we are zooming right to graduation. So it's really interesting, because some of the things I've been learning is like springtime is a elevated risk for suicide in young people. They're under a lot of pressure to, perform and get the grades and have the balance and finish all the homework and do the things. There's also a histamine factor at play with the
Mm,
allergies in certain
yeah.
climates. So that's something interesting that I'm just learning about. And so this anxiety, and even the ones who are seniors who are like, well, I'm already kind of mostly checked out and just kind of trying to white knuckle it to graduation and be like, just really eager for that next stage. Even in the eagerness and excitement, sometimes the anxiety rears up. And am I doing enough? Am I on the right path? Did I pick the right school? Did I, what am I going to do for this summer? Did I make the right choice? So there's a lot of, there can be a lot of second guessing and anxiety around that, even in the midst of the excitement of I'm going to be an adult and I'm graduating and things like that. So just, again, honoring whatever their experience is and being curious, helping them still continue to name their feelings and ask questions about, what they're thinking, and not even not even always doing that, but making sure that there's downtime and fun happening, because they are putting a lot of pressure on themselves, especially the ones I work with are young leaders and high achievers. They do put a lot of pressure on themselves. They know probably all the things that you want to nag them about, and being able to create opportunities for just low pressure connection, and watching a movie together, play their video game with them, or ask them about something fun, or treat their friends to an ice cream, or something that's just non-threatening, not nagging, not pressuring, and just you can just kind of be and hang out. So I think that's really important in this season, where they are really making that final push to whether it's graduation or whether it's junior year, and they're starting to look at where they want to apply for school, doing some school tours or things like that. um, those are all things that it's on their minds, and they're also kind of freaking out about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is good. And I think the big thing is I feel like is, the asking questions. One of the biggest things I've had to learn as a parent, and mostly because, like I said, all mine are adults now, and not a one of them did anything I wanted them to do. They have not followed the path that I had planned for them, and I think you have to just get to a place where you love them where they are. You love and embrace them
Right.
where they are. And, I always tell them, with my kids, I love my kids. I don't really love the choices that they make, right? We don't always love the choices
Right.
that our kids make. But, I
And that's
feel
any
like
relationship that we're in.
exactly, exactly. I do feel like they are free to make the decisions that they want
Mhm.
to make. I've always said that, you have to own your decisions, and I'm a firm
Right.
believer in that you have to own the decisions that you make. And this goes back to even, I say all the way when they were young kids and and they wanted to do activities, and we were in soccer and karate and all these different things, and I would make them
Mhm.
pick. And I would say, whatever you're going to do, you need to see it through. It's your decision. You follow it through. And unless you truly, if you truly, truly hate it, then yes. And we did have to walk away, but I
Right.
did always kind of leave those choices up to them. And I still expect the same out of them today, but they are free to make their own choices. And
Mhm.
that's how it goes. And so I think that, I love what you're doing. I think it's important. And I think a lot of us, as parents, we do. There's no handbook to parenting, right? If we
Right.
had
And
that.
yeah, most of the parents I talk to, it's like they want their kids to be happy. They want them to be
Yes.
fulfilled. They want them to find their own path. And some of them are like, and that means going to college.
Yeah.
So sometimes they have their own expectations, like you said.
Right.
They have their desires for their kids without realizing what they're putting on their kids.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
okay. Like, we're all human.
Yeah.
And I like to kind of joke that my job is to help young adults disappoint their parents. But it's not,
Let's do
it may be disappointing the parents' expectations or stories.
Yeah.
It's ultimately giving the parents pride that their child can go out into the world, create their own path, and be successful on their own terms. Like you said, owning their choices
Right.
and following things through and contributing in a way that doesn't lead them back to mom and dad's basement, right?
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah.
don't want that. They don't want that.
Right.
So that's, it may not look the way we expect it to when we, hold those newborn babies in our arms, but it usually looks a lot better when they
Yeah.
can get on their own feet and make it their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
And
I've
Gen
kind of
Z's
a
really good at that. Like,
yeah,
they really are good at making things their own.
yeah. I've sort of adopted the idea that look, I just want them to find what they want to do and be happy and enjoy it. Like find what makes you
Mhm.
happy and just do it. Do it with pride. Do it because you
Right.
like to do it and own the decision. That's how I feel about it. It's like whatever that is.
Mhm.
I don't know what that journey looks like. They've all taken different journeys. Like I said, not anything what I expected. I had obviously, like I said, as parents, we all have different expectations for our
Yeah.
kiddos, but I
And the
think
world is
that
changing so fast. They've got to find a way to make their mark and have their voice heard and
yeah.
find their own way, because it's not the same as when we were growing up, or even
No.
10 years ago. It's not the same.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to ask you kind of a different question, kind of
Sure.
on the lines of entrepreneur and mother, because I think this will be fun because we do have a lot of female listeners that listen to
Mhm.
this. And I think this topic is so good, what you've talked about here, because they were, like I said, we're wearing all these different hats, and part of that is parenting, rearing children. So I want to know, you said a lot of good things on the parenting aspect, but any maybe as the entrepreneur, being the mother, coaching other young kids and having kiddos yourself, any maybe real tips that for your, that you could offer our female entrepreneurs just on the side of entrepreneurship that's worked for you being the mom entrepreneur?
Um, One thing that I've started doing recently is involving my family in some of my business goals. Is I have a daily goal of an hour of a certain task that I need to do. And if I meet it every day of the week, then we all get to benefit from it. There's a reward, and they get to pick, and my kids get to pick, what are we going to do this weekend if I meet my goals, or when I meet my goals. So that's something I try to do, is say when instead of if. So we've gone to the pickle store because my kids really love eating pickles, and things like that. And then every day they're coming home from school saying, "Mom, did you do the thing?" And I'll be like, yeah, I did the thing. So it's this extra level of accountability, and then they are actually invested in seeing me succeed instead of coming in and pulling my focus. And especially days when they're off of school or something like that, it's about clearly communicating, hey, I need to do this thing right now, and I need you to go do something quietly or go make your own lunch or whatever it is, and just being really explicit with my expectations of them, and when I'm with them, being with them. So when I have the time with them, we are together, we're playing a game, or we're watching a show together, or we're doing something where we are actually present and involved with each other. And I'm not in the back of my mind thinking, who do I need to email, or who do I need to follow up with today, and things like that. When I'm with them, I put my business aside. So that's something that, again, it doesn't always come easy. And especially at the beginning, I was like not very good at it. But I think that's, probably some of the struggles that we mom entrepreneurs have, is feeling guilty that we're not spending time with our kids when we're spending time on our business, and feeling guilty that we're not spending time on our business when we're spending time with our family. And understanding that sometimes there's more time in either of those areas. And it is still important that it's quality and focus time, because we can't always control the amount of time that we need to spend in a different place. But when we're there, be there, whether it's with our kids or with our business.
It's good. Be present. Be present. I like it. I think the harmony and just having the recognizing that there's no equal balance in any of that. You just have to, be present when you're present, and it's good. I like it, Sarah.
Right. And balance is important, and it's something everybody's looking for. What it really looks like is prioritization and presence and managing energy and focus. Right. It's not necessarily balancing everything or time management. It's prioritizing your energy and focus.
Yeah. That's why I use that word harmony, because I hate balance. I'm like, that just doesn't, it just doesn't even, it's just not even practical. If we look to find harmony in our lives, then we can prioritize. We recognize where we need to put our time and our energy, be present in the places that we need to be present at the right time. So you said a lot of really good things.
There's always going to be a give and take and an ebb and flow. Even when you're standing on one foot in a yoga pose, like your muscles are still like twitching, and you're still leaning one way, leaning the other way, you're compensating for that. So there's never a like perfect balance, like you said.
I agree. Sarah, this has been great. So if our audience, because we may have some listeners on here that want to get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about what you're doing, maybe they need some help. Yeah, if our audience wants to get some information from you, where would you like us to send them?
My website is saradeacon.com. It's fun website, and I have a free download. We play a game called Adulting Bingo. So you can fill in your bingo card and, get in touch with me about it. And if you have a teen, young adult who could benefit from some extra support, you can click and make an appointment. It's a free session called the Adult Successfully Strategy Session. And that is at my website, saradeacon.com/hello.
Perfect. All right, Sarah, we'll make sure when this goes out too, I'll get the links on there so everybody knows where to find you and find all that information. So this has been fun. Thank you so much for sharing. I think what you're doing is awesome. I want to say, keep doing your thing. I applaud you. I know that's not an easy thing, and clearly you love it. I can tell by just your energy and your passion when you talk about it. And that's good, because as entrepreneurs, like I just said, we want you to be happy doing what you're doing, right? That's what I tell my kids. Find what you love and get passionate.
And Gen Z can sniff you out if you are not genuinely excited about what you're doing. They have a real keen sense of that. They'll call out your inauthenticity right away, and will have nothing to do with you if you're not real.
That might be one thing I have in common with them, because I'm the same way. So like I said, I can tell that you love what you do. And I want to tell you, thank you so much for contributing to what we are doing here and trying to, spread positive message and keep all of our women entrepreneurs and creators and achievers and starter girls healthy and all that they do, including their relationships. And so to our audience, of course, if you enjoy the show, go check us out on Apple Podcasts. You can check us out there, or any of your favorite podcast platform. And as we always say, take care of yourselves, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.